Hello, everyone. This is Young from Career School. So today I'll be talking about leadership principle once again. And today's leadership principle is learn and be curious. Learn and be curious is, I think, one of the most important leadership principles at Amazon because a lot of the times when we work, there's a lot of ambiguity. So being able to learn and be curious about the subject that you're working on is really, really important. And also because Amazon hires people not only for a specific role, as I said in the past videos, but we hire people based on if they would be able to fit into Amazon as a whole and not specific to a role. This means that this person who comes in will be at some point learning and be curious in a new subject. This is also really relevant because Amazon is a company where we encourage employees to rotate to new roles every year or 2 years period. And whenever we do make that transition to a new role, it's super important that you learn and be curious about the subject that you will be working on. So yeah, learn and be curious, as I said, is a very important leadership principle that you should really have and be curious about the things that you are about to work on. So yeah, let's go into the actual leadership principle. Leaders are never done learning and always seek to improve themselves. They are curious about new possibilities and act to explore them. So as you can see, the leadership principle itself is kind of, self-explanatory about, hey, even though if you are in a very high rank, such as Jeff Bezos, I'm just making this up, or if you are someone who is just starting at Amazon, it doesn't really matter. You really have to be learning new things in order to become a good leader, a good Amazonian. And I think I mentioned this slightly in my previous comment, but it's really important because a lot of the times we deal with ambiguous situations, and sometimes you really need to navigate these situations by yourself. And a lot of the times, it's highly likely that you never actually encounter those situations. So for example, when I was working on my first project at Amazon, I think it was something about emails. So I am the email subject matter expert, SME. Well, back then and now as well, but email was something very new to me. However, I was able to kind of learn and be curious about the whole email marketing stuff. And then I became a SME for emails, just like that. But yeah, let's go into the sample questions. Actually, you know what? Before going into the sample questions, I think there's one interesting fact that I want to share with you is we do ask candidates learn and be curious leadership principle questions during interviews. However, it's likely that you will not actually get any question around learn and be curious. I saw learn and be curious as one of the most important leadership principles to ask interviewees during the interview. However, learn and be curious always come up during the debrief because we evaluate candidates based on their answers or their behaviors or their stories while we are interviewing. So for example, what would you have done differently, or what new thing have you learned throughout that project? These follow-up questions and the answer that I get provided from the interviewees are really good indicators of if this person has learned and be curious or not. Similarly, we also assess people based on how they answer the questions and kind of see if this person has the leadership principle or not by learning about their projects or their stories or their anecdotes during the whole interview process. So it's also really important that you do ask questions at the end. That 5-10 minutes time that we give you to ask questions. I would really, really prepare those questions before going into an interview and not ask something that's super obvious or something that is above our pay grade. However, let's jump into the sample questions here. As I always say, these sample questions, you can find them on Google or anywhere else. So let's jump into the first one. Tell me about a time when you realized you needed a deeper level of subject matter expertise to do your job well. What did you do about it? What was the outcome? Is there anything you would have done differently? 2. Describe a time when you took on work outside of your comfort area. How did you identify what you needed to learn to be successful? How did you go about building expertise to meet your goal? And did you meet the goal? 3. Tell me about a time when you didn't know what to do next or how to solve a challenging problem. How do you learn what you don't know? What were the options you considered? How did you decide the best path forward? And what was the outcome? As you've probably seen, a lot of the questions are geared towards being in an ambiguous situation where you don't really know what to do next. And how do you solve those problems, based on what you have? Or where do you find those solutions? Or where do you start looking in these ambiguous situations? So as I said, dealing with ambiguity is an important part of this leadership principle, and that's why you should be having the Learn and Be Curious leadership principle to you, so that you actually are able to learn and solve the problem properly. Yeah, let's go into the sample answer. So as I said before, this leadership principle answer was used when I was interviewing with Amazon about 2 years ago. And I realized that this leadership principle answer for Learn and Be Curious, I actually use it for another one. But as I said before, it all kind of depends on how you frame it and how you actually want to highlight which parts of the story. Because in one story, there's not only one theme or one leadership principle that you can really portray. It's just you will understand that at some point. Like everything kind of blends in when you are sharing your stories to one specific leadership principle question. Let's go into my sample answer. And this one was when I was launching the first smartphone project for Huawei when I was back in Korea. It's called the X3 project. So launching the X3 project at Huawei was a very, very ambiguous in a situation where I didn't really know anything about, because it was my first project after joining Huawei, and then we were like a 4-member team. That X3 project was the first project that we were working on in Korea, and before that, no one had nothing in the Korean market for Huawei. I was the only Korean guy who could actually communicate with the people in telcos, so yeah, it was really, really challenging time for me. Anyway, it was really important, this project, because it's the first Huawei project that was worked on in the Korean market. And then second, this product, X3, was Huawei's first product with a voice over LTE function embedded in the product. However, as a product manager, honestly, I didn't really know what to do from the beginning. But anyway, based on the experience I had before, I kind of outlined the schedule and shared it with everyone so that everyone can be on top of the schedule and know what's going on and when is something will happen. And then second was to we had all the requirements, so I analyzed and prioritized the requirements based on the importance for the product and for the customers. And then the number 3, obviously, I oversaw the development process as well. It was mostly on the localization and then the optimizing of the software for a product that will be launched in the Korean market. And then I actually hired a third-party company and managed them for field testing for these products, because whenever we have these products, we want to know how it's doing and what's missing. So it was really important that I have someone hired to take a look at it. And then obviously number 5 is I monitored the whole process. We had, some mechanisms in place. We had some daily reports coming in from the engineers back in headquarters, and then our third-party engineers in Korea as well, to kind of share all the status every day. And then we had a weekly meeting set up so that I can understand where we were at and, where we're going with. So yeah, this whole process kind of gave me a good understanding of the Korean market, and also got me really made me understand the functions like LTE networking, VoLTE, voice over LTE, really well at the same time. So obviously didn't really know anything at the beginning, but was able to figure out by asking a lot of questions to people and then utilizing my past experience at Pantech, which was for a different market. But I thought it was going to be a similar process because, smartphones, telcos, I thought it was going to be similar. Anyway, asking questions, doing a lot of assessments, analyzing, and then bringing back my past experience was the way to learn and be curious, and also finally launched the product on time. And then we had 40% more sales than what we originally expected. And then we were able to offer the product in a lower price, lower ASP versus other phones in the Korean market back then. And I think we were able to contribute by launching this product to lower the total ASP of Korean smartphones and giving more options to the customers out there. Yeah, so that was it for today on Learn and Be Curious Leadership Principle. Hope you enjoyed it. Please leave comments, questions about anything regarding Amazon, tech industry, FANG, leadership principles, Amazon interview, just about anything. And I'll happily reply back to your questions. If you haven't already, please subscribe, share the video, like the video, and stay tuned for more content like this. Thank you so much.